Well, to sum up the last 13 years in 5 to 7 minutes was really tough. I could go on and talk for hours about how much I had gotten out of my experience here with Unity. But when I first walked through the doors in October of 2006, it was because I heard that someone had told me that they talked about The Secret here. Now, the movie The Secret had just come out that year, and I was really into it. But no one else was talking about it. Not even Oprah was talking about it at that time. I came to check it out, and I wasn't a church guy, but here I am 13 years later, and I've never stopped coming back. And in fact, I didn't just come back. I dove head first into it, and I took all the classes. We had a Course in Miracles group here, which we met often twice a week. And then somehow I got roped into singing in the choir. And I never sang before, especially not in public. But it's here where I really first started playing guitar and singing in front of folks. I've always had stage fright before. But in those past years, I sang and played a lot. And I would not be playing at the level that I am now if it were not for the patience and the support that I had gotten from this church in those early days. Because during those times where my performance got a little interesting, everyone was always very warm and supportive of me. So I'm really grateful for that. And as I sat down and thought about what I've gotten out of Unity, it's funny how you look back and you see all the little ways that you don't even think that it has touched my life and ripples out. I've had some awesome experiences with God. Through manifested thoughts, the timing of seemingly random events that kind of fit together like puzzle pieces, and then when you look back at them, you see the divine order of it all as it all fit together. The unexpected ways that Spirit touches and guides me through others. Unity has helped me find the strength and the awareness that I now have of knowing what's going on and having a better understanding of maybe the different levels of where things are going. There's some serious divinity that's at play here at Unity. In 2010, I started traveling a lot for business, and what I started doing was, on my travels, I had a rental car, so at night I'd go to a local Unity church. So I've been to Unity churches across the U.S. For weekday meetings, of course, Miracles classes, and Sunday services, and always felt very welcome. But probably the coolest experience that I had was I actually had a meeting in Kansas City, so I decided I'd stay at Unity Village while I was in the area. And if you haven't been there, Unity Village is just a very magical, special place. There is an energy there. And I remember when I was driving onto the property, it was a beautiful fall day. The leaves were just starting to change color, the sun was out, and I saw the sign of the bookstore, so I drove to the bookstore. I figured that's where I'll start first. I'll kind of get the lay of the land and see what I wanted to go see. And as I was walking up to the door, I was thinking it'd be really great if I had a tour guide. And I didn't even get through that door, and I heard someone call my name, and I look over, and it's Mike Corbin. Now, Mike was a member here at Unity Northwest at the time. As many of you know, he's now a Unity minister, and it was on that day that he was finishing up his interviews to get into the ministerial program. And so it was neat. He and I sat down for coffee, and then he gave me the best tour ever of Unity Village. And I even got to see the Blue Chapel, which I don't think I'd ever be able to find again because it's in such a interesting place at Unity Village. But it was a really neat experience, and just the energy and the whole experience was very special. What was really neat about it was that he and I Mike and I ended up going out to dinner that night, having a great conversation. The next day, after my meeting, I went back, picked him up. We drove to the airport together. We had the same flight home, and I gave him a ride home to his house. And when I talk about the funny ways that Unity influences and ripples through our lives. During our conversations, he had mentioned Toastmasters and that he was in a club, and he suggested that I check it out. So I did, and I spent 4 years at that Toastmasters club, and it's because of that experience that I can actually stand up here and talk in front of you today. So again, it's really interesting how Unity has really played a big role in my life. Something that Mike had mentioned as well is that he felt that I was sent there for him because he was not really sure about how the interviews went, and if he had to sit there at dinner alone, he would have gone crazy, thinking about his answers and if he said the right things. So it really is interesting how God works in ways that we all help each other out. But when it gets right down to it, what keeps me coming back here is the connection. My life is all about connection, and here it's the connection with you, it's the connection with Spirit, it's the connection with God, and I over the years I've read piles of books on spirituality and personal development. I've listened to hours and hours of tapes and CDs, and when it gets right down to it, for me, it's the interactions and the experiences that I have here at Unity that are really what give me my spiritual guidance. It's these times that I have my aha moments, and it's probably one of the greatest reasons why I've been a chaplain, a prayer chaplain since 2013, because it's those experiences that I have, sitting down with you on Sundays and praying with you and having that connection. It just really takes things to a whole another level for me, and having those experiences has really opened up my mind and my eyes to a lot of what God has to offer. So, and then also just the energy of the team itself. It keeps me in the flow, praying every day for other people. I've just seen some amazing things happen because of that. The energy of the chaplain team is pretty amazing as well, and we have some really great meetings. So as a quick plug for the chaplains, we're going to have our orientation meeting sometime in mid-January, so check it out. But when it gets right down to it, for me, Unity has been my path to greater recognition, to a greater understanding and activation of my spirituality. And I thank you all for being a part of that journey.
I'm thankful for whoever put out the intention into the universe that Chris joined the choir, because we're blessed to have him as part of the music program. Next, we welcome Anita Stehmeier. Many of you regulars will know Anita, as she is a staple in the children's church, and she has been in Unity since elementary school. In addition to working with the children and teens, she leads the Tuesday night meditation, and in her professional life, she is a practicing physical therapist and my personal posture coach. Anita is one of the longtime rocks of this church. If there's ever anything you want to know about when something happened or where you can find something in this building, she was the one to ask. Please welcome Anita.
There's no way you can get me to stand behind that. When I was in elementary school, this magazine showed up at our doorstep called We Wisdom. And they don't publish it anymore, but can I tell you, my mother was a hoarder. So here are two opposites. I opened the centerfold of that one. It's not this one. But in the middle are good words with good affirmations. And the one that opened that very first time I saw this magazine, the word joy was there. And the magazine was giving me permission to have and be joy. Now this was really eye-opening for me because I was bullied pretty severely in elementary school. I was chubby. I don't think I was obese. I really believe it was just chubby, but whatever, kids are mean, right? But this magazine said I could be joyful. We were on the north side of Chicago at the time, and some changes were happening in our lives. The high school was being raided every day by the police for drugs and prostitution, and my sister became pregnant at 15, 16. And that totally changed my mother. My mother was going through menopause at the time. That's a combination of metaphysics and menopause. So really my journey is my mother's journey that she was seeking, that she was trying to find the answer to what she felt was the biggest tragedy a woman could ever go through, daughter teenage pregnancy. So we left Chicago and moved out here to the northwest suburbs, where my mom found that Unity that used to be on Palatine Road in a little farmhouse with Joe Jones leading. And our very first time, we sat in the back row. and she cried through the whole service. And when it came time to raise your hand if you're a new person, she could not, but we never left. She became the board of directors. We bought this church. She was on the board of directors when we found this church. And we really found community and that connectedness that Chris was talking about, and how important that is for our spiritual journey. One of the books we read when I was a teenager was Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady. Years later, I studied it again with Greg Barrett, and I was like, oh, this is where I heard that. And it was really kind of an aha experience because it's one of our foundational books. But in that book, Emily says, don't read too many books. And I took that to heart because I read quite a few, probably not a quarter of what Chris has read. But I found that it really wasn't about the book learning, that it was about the meditation and prayer work. And so I didn't understand that in high school early. I mean, I thought I knew it. My mother was spiritually involved. I was in the YOU movement. I was dating a boy who I thought nobody else would love me. He was going to be a carny when he grew up. I took him to the youth program. I tried to save him. I think that's what we all try to do, right? Is save other people, but we can't. And so God sent me a spiritual 2x4. I was 15 and I was hit by a truck. He was turning left, so he wasn't going really fast. But I did spend a week in the hospital. And that carny boyfriend, oh, too jealous. I don't want to visit you unless I can be there alone. I said, good luck. In that week, I had 36 people come to visit me when I thought I hadn't a friend in the world. And I saw that love reflected in these other people and finally felt it in myself. Despite having this at a young age, the bullying really tore me down. And so it was in that experience of laying there in a hospital bed and allowing other people to love me that I had my awakening. And I value that to this day because then I was such a part of the teen group that I would always be a part of the teen group. In the 80s, after I graduated high school, I worked with the teens that were still here. In the 90s, I had my own children, so I started from little bitties and worked back up to high school. And now the boys are in their 20s, and yet I still feel that affinity to work with the children. Because I want them to know that the bullies are your educators. That they're there to remind you that they're struggling and then you could help them, even if you can't help them, by recognizing your own light within and radiating that light and radiating that joy and hoping they come along with you, because we can be inspirations for others, but we can't make them get it. I would say that Max is pretty enlightened. He's back there working with the youth right now. They're doing their Burning Bowl today. My other son, Ian, he is not enlightened, and I can't make him. And so that was a weird lesson for me too. My older sister, she's passed away now. She didn't get it. She couldn't wake up. So I continue to pray for her. I know that she's woke now. My father, strict Catholic. Well, not too strict, he married out of the church. On his deathbed, I know he knows we were all going to hell. And I just kept saying, Daddy, it's okay, Mom's there, waiting for you, waiting to greet you. She may be on the other side of the brick wall the Catholics put up, but she's there. I'm sorry if you're a recovering Catholic, that guilt still rings true sometimes, I think. But it is so grateful, the journey, to know that that love, that joy, that power, that strength, all exists in each one of us. And if we can remember to see it in each other, we build that community, and we take that community out into the world to hopefully strengthen it for all of us. Thank you so much for listening.
Finally, we welcome Gail Petersdorff. Gail has lived her entire life in metropolitan Chicago. She spent most of her career in the field of education and now enjoys her retirement years volunteering and traveling both in the United States and to faraway places. She also blesses us as a member of the prayer chaplain team and the hospitality team. Please welcome Gail.
Thank you, Doug. Good morning to all of you. As mentioned in the introduction, I've lived in metropolitan Chicago my entire life. My loving, kind parents were both of Scandinavian heritage and brought us up in the Lutheran Church. Then one Sunday in 1970, my paternal aunt invited my fiance and I to attend church with her downtown at the Esquire Theater, it was on Oak Street. After hearing Dr. Carlton Whitehead speak and experiencing the format of the service that Sunday became a very pivotal date for the rest of our lives. 6 months later, my fiance and I were married in the Lutheran Church. However, as newlyweds, we started attending the First Church of Religious Science with Sunday services held at the Esquire, classes, and eventually became members. Why were we attracted? Because love, not guilt, was the focus. Affirmations, not supplications, were to be made. And daily intentions with a positive thrust were encouraged. Along with books by Ernest Holmes, Charles Barker, Emmett Fox, and Florence Scovel Shinn, there was a book by John Williams that was titled The Knack of Using Your Subconscious Mind that caught our attention. The book suggested a cooker sheet. Be prepared on the desired solution of any challenge or a new experience we wanted to have. On the cooker sheet, one was directed to state the solution desired, create a list of the qualities of the desire or goal, set a date for reviewing what had been written. This was to allow time of percolation to take place, and then to express gratitude for the perfect demonstration. An example of this method would be in the expression of wishing to have a new for you car. The cooker sheet would include qualities which are: is affordable, is mechanically perfect and reliable, gets excellent gasoline mileage per gallon, is comfortable to ride in and drive, is pleasing to the eye, serves me well, and is ready for my ownership at the time I need it. After you would make this cooker sheet, it would then tell you to put it aside, review it at the designated date, and be ready for the demonstration. This activity is very similar to what's going to take place this New Year's Eve right here, when the church encourages us to write a letter to God. And then you'll find that it's mailed to you a year from now to remind you of those desires you stated. Another of Dr. Whitehead's teachings emphasized the use of the phrase, "Only good will come of this," whenever a challenge appeared. To this very day, I say this phrase regularly. The best example is in one of my travel experiences. Perhaps you know that Southwest Airlines has what's called an open seat policy. And I happen to be a Southwest airline fan. But how this works is that 24 hours prior to your departure, you are to log in on the computer and get your seating queue for how you're going to board the plane. Well, I was scheduled for a 3.5-hour flight to Phoenix and attempted to log in as I was supposed to, the 24 hours. And after 2 failed attempts, I finally called the airline and spoke to a reservationist and told her about my dilemma. "Well, Mrs. Petersdorff, you purchased a senior priced fare for your trip, and we don't have any validation of your birth date." I replied that I had been a Southwest airline frequent flyer for 14 years and surprised that my birth date had never been validated. "I'm sorry," she said, "but you'll have to see the agent at the airport." "Only good will come of this," I kept affirming to myself, and I repeated that affirmation until I arrived at the airport the next day. The boarding cue I received after working with the ticket agent was C3. That meant that I was the second to the last person to board the plane. "Only good will come of this," I kept affirming. Upon boarding the plane, my whole focus is there storage space for my carry-ons? That's the whole focus. So after finding a space for the luggage, I then looked for the empty seat. As I sat down in the middle of a 3-row seat, I said hello to each of my seatmates. The woman seating next to the window, my desired seat, began talking and told me that she was a customer service representative for AT&T. "How do you survive?" I asked. "The 4 agreements," she replied. I am familiar with the book Don Luis that has that title. And this woman and I spent the next 3 hours in discussion. What a blessing that turned out to be. When I started attending Unity Northwest 3 years ago and became acquainted with the prayer for protection that is recited at the end of our service, I was at that time and still am in awe of the depth of the words. The light of God surrounds me, front, back, right, left, upward, downward. The love of God enfolds me. Don't you always feel good when you get to wrap a blanket around you in the wintertime? Just think about that. God's love is enfolding you. The power of God protects me, always, in every situation. The presence of God watches over me. It doesn't matter if I'm awake, asleep, not paying attention to the moment, or just daydreaming. What powerful words all of these are. I'm so grateful for the prayer of protection that I was introduced to when I came here and that I use on a daily basis. In closing, I'd just like to leave you with this statement attributed to St. Augustine. Pray as though everything depended on God, and work as though everything depends on you. Thank you.
I invite you now to take in a deep breath, acknowledging the Holy Spirit that moves in and through us and has our being. Close your outer eyes and open your inner eye. And feel that strength that comes from within, that allows us to support each other in our spiritual community, intertwined at our roots, reaching for the sun. It is our strength and our awareness that every breath is a miracle. Every breath an opportunity to remember who we are. To radiate love. To extend joy. To live in peace. To pray continuously. It is when we become centered We see that growth in the trees reflects our growth. Every breath, a centered breath, renewing our strength, renewing our love, allowing us to remember in the silence who we truly are. As we bring our awareness back again to this Holy Spirit moment, we remember that it is our choice to radiate joy. It is our choice to embody love. In this awareness, we can be kinder. Service more. It is our nature to do so. We are so grateful and uplifted, and so it is.